Mahabharata is one of the two major Sanskrit epics of ancient India in Hinduism, the other being the Ramayana. It narrates the struggle between two groups of cousins in the Kurukshetra war and the fates of the Kauravas and the Pandavas princes and their successor. Author Vyas. Thank you for having me. My name is Tejal Singh of 12th I and I am going to be speaking to you about research work of B.B. Lal and V.S. Sukthankar on Mahabharata. Mahabharata Historicity by Professor B.B. Lal or Brajbasi Lal. He born on 2nd of May 1921, died 10 September 2022, aged 101 years, occupation archaeologist, Director General Archaeological Survey of India 1968 to 1972, known for work on Indus Valley Civilization sites, Mahabharata sites, Kalimbangan, Ramayana sites. Like history in India today, disputed, constantly accredited, exhibited from Archaeological Survey of India head Brajbasi Lal's legacy is torn between those executing him as a great insurer or who connected India with its past and the other criticizing him for the abuse of archaeology. The problem. There are two extremely divergent views about the historicity of the Mahabharata. To the faithful, everything mentioned in the text is true to the very letter. To some others, it is a merry figment of imagination. The reason for such a confusion lies in the very nature of the epic itself. Say, for example, if Krishna was a historical figure, he is unlikely to have been later Buddha who lived in 6th to 5th century BCE. On the other hand, parts of the text may be as late as the 4th century CE, since it refers not only to the Greeks and the Romans but also to the Huns. What an yawning gap between the event and the text. Secondly, the Mahabharata, as available now, comprises over 1 lakh verses, but earlier it consisted of 24,000 verses and called the Bharata. Still, earlier it had only 8,000 verses called the Jaya. Thus, what indeed is the original can't be determined. Thirdly, let it not be forgotten that the Mahabharata was not meant to be a history book. It is an epic, and the poet enjoyed absolutely liberty to let his imagination fly high. Thus, one cannot question his use of superlatives while describing the places or the strength of the armies on the battlefield or the supernatural weapons used by them. As an archaeologist, I thought that a way to ascertain the truth might to be explore and excavate site associated with the Mahabharata story and find out what these have to say in the matter. In this context, a very important point to note is that all the Mahabharata sites luckily continue to bear the same names even today as they did in antiquity. Example, Hastinapur, Mathura, Kurukshetra, etc. These are sites associated with the Mahabharata story. Hastinapur, the key site. Way back in 1951 to 1952, I conducted exhibitions at the key site of Hastinapur, the capital of the Kauravas, located on the right bank of the Ganga in Meerut district, Uttar Pradesh, some 60 miles northeast of Delhi. The results very stilting as we shall see from the slides that follow. Here are some pictures. Systematic section across Hastinapur Mount 1950 to 1952. Claims of the PGW culture. At this point, it needs to emphasize that it is the painted grey war culture, which is the lowest common denominator at all the sites associated with the Mahabharata. Stories referred to earlier and shown on the map. In fact, even sites associated with the story through verbal tradition have yielded remains of the painted grey war culture. Here are some pictures. Archaeology vis-a-vis the text. In the context of the archaeological evidence of a flood having destroyed Hastinapura, the text ever. You can read the text. The meaning of the text is when the city of Nagasavya Hastinapur is carried away by the Ganga, Nakshuku, the then ruler, will abandon it and dwell in Kausambi. And the archaeological evidence corroborate it. Chronicle horizon of the Mahabharata war. We now come to the most crucial issue with the probable date of the Mahabharata war. As mentioned in the text, it was during the time of Nakshu that the capital was shifted from Hastinapura to Kausambia. The text further tells us that Nikshu was fifth ruler in succession from Prakshit, who ascended the throne after the war. And B. Amongst the rulers at Kausambi, Udayana was 19th from Nikashu. Hence, Udayana was the 24th ruler after the war. Further, it is well known that Udayana was contemporary of Buddha, who passed away in 487 BCE. Thus, in broader figure, Udayana may have ruled around 500 BCE. The next question is, what was the total duration of the region of these 24 rulers? Here you can see. If we round off 13.55 years average per ruler to 14 years or even extend it to say 15, the date of the war would work out as follows. This is not to say that the war took place exactly in 860 BCE. It is a figure arrived at from a combined evidence of archaeology and literature. We may further round it off to Krika 900 BCE, but perhaps no more. Now, Mahabharata Historicity by Professor V.S. Sukthankar. Vishnu Sitaram Sukhantar, also known as V.S. Sukthankar. 4th May 1887 to 21st January 1943, was an eminent Indologist and scholar of Sanskrit. He is principally known as the journal editor of the critical edition of the Mahabharata published by Bhandakar Orient Research Institute in Pune, India. In 1925, Sukhantar assumed the journal editorship of the critical edition of the Mahabharata at the Bhandakar Orient Research Institute in Pune. After years of tireless labor and the assistance of several copyists and fellow scholars, the first festival of the Adi Parva, that is, first of the 18th book of the Mahabharata, was published in 1927, followed by the entire Adi Parva in 1933. The work involved collating about 60 partial manuscripts of the Mahabharata in 10 different scales belonging to two major recensions, northern and southern. A lucid and detailed account of his method of textual criticism may be found in the Prolegomena to the 1933 volume. Some of his writing on the Mahabharata have been collected in the first volume of the Sukhantar Memorial Edition. Contribution to the study of Mahabharata. Discover and analysis of manuscript. Sukhantar discovered several important manuscripts of the Mahabharata, including the critical edition, which is considered the most authoritative version of the epic. He analyzed and compared multiple versions of the Mahabharata to identify the core narrative and the various additions and interpolation made over time. Textual criticism. Sukhantar was a pioneer in the field of textual criticism, which involves analyzing the text of a literature work to identify errors, inconsistencies, and changes made over time. He applied this approach to the Mahabharata, identifying several instances of textual cooperation and interpolation. Translation and annotation. Sukhantar translated and annotated several sections of the Mahabharata, providing valuable insights into the meaning and significance of the epic. His translation and annotation were based on a deep understanding of the language, culture, and historical context of ancient India. Contribution to the critical edition. Sukthankar played a key role in the preparation of the critical edition of the Mahabharata, which involved the collation and compromises of several manuscripts to arrive at a standardized version of the epic. He also provided extensive annotation and cross-reference to help reader navigate the complex narrative and the thematic structure of the epic. Overall, Sukhantar's contribution to the study of Mahabharata have been invaluable in deepening our understanding of this epic work of Indian literature. His meticulous scholarship and attention to detail have helped to establish the Mahabharata as one of the greatest literature work of all time. Thank you for listening me. Have a nice day.
है प्रचंड बोल मस्तकों के झुंड।